I'm very pleased to be interviewing Linda Ong, who's CEO of Truthco. Thank you for your time.
Sure, thank you.
So give me a little bit of your background. How did you get to where you are today?
That's a really long story, but the short answer is I majored in advertising in college, which was really great in that it taught me, it really nurtured me as a creative, but more importantly, it taught me how to think strategically. So when I entered the television business, I started as a producer, a segment producer on TV, and then on the network side went into on-air promos, became a writer-producer, and I was quickly able to sort of leapfrog upwards because a lot of people in the television business have great craft and have the real skill set and knowledge and experience to know how to make TV. But what I found is that training traditionally doesn't prepare them to think strategically about the messaging. So that I was able to work with really great marketers and really great creatives as well in my career. And I think I worked in and out of networks, and on the agency side, it was at Lee Hunt Associates for 6 years. And then my last staff job was launching Oxygen, Oprah's first network, in 2000. And then soon after that, I decided to go off on my own and really focus on brand strategy as an outsider, really providing it, working with providing the assistance and the help and the strategic guidance and the creative guidance to help brands like Bravo and Animal Planet and Univision really become a force on the cultural map.
Tell me about Truthco.
Truthco is a brand consultancy that focuses on the intersection between culture and brand strategy. So that is to say that everybody wants their brand to be relevant and authentic. We really study what that means. And another phrase that people like to use is to be ahead of the curve. We love that, but we fundamentally believe that in order to be ahead of the curve, you have to map the curve itself. So that's what we do. We look at long-term trends that are going on through our society, through the conversations that are happening among and involving consumers, but not that necessarily consumers are only able to articulate. So we see the work that we do in the cultural space as really complementing traditional insights, but also fueling smarter brand strategy, really allowing a really great brand strategy to not only speak to the needs of the business and to the needs of the audience, but to really have a place in culture and really to understand what that place is. How do you maintain it? How do you cement it? How do you grow it? And those two things really work hand in hand in our belief.
It sounds like there's a large research element to your work.
Right. 50% of our work is cultural analysis, and 50% of it is brand strategy. And again, we really think those need to work hand in hand, because today, with the advent of social media, you really can't responsibly launch a brand without really understanding and analyzing how it will resonate in the culture at large. And what we find is that by listening and monitoring and analyzing the conversations that are happening in culture, we have a better real-time picture of how things will be received than traditional consumer insights, which tend to really rely on when the consumer's already ingested and articulated an idea. So our track record over the past 6 years has been really phenomenal in anticipating swings in culture, shifts in culture, and how things will be received. For example, we just finished a study in early January on how television news needed to shift to address the new paradigm of viewers, and especially millennials. And only a few weeks afterwards, we see that Brian Williams' story exploded, and many, if not all, of the points that are being debated around that story were things we had anticipated in our study.
In terms of Truthco studies, what type of data is thrown off from your studies?
So all of our studies are conducted through a methodology based on semiotics. Semiotics is the study of how things acquire meaning in culture. So it's a sort of like a cultural anthropology. We look at all the mass media and analyze all the conversations that are going on about whatever the relevant topic or audience or subject matter or genre is. And that's everything from TV, books, film, internet, radio, mobile apps, to advertising. We look at public spaces, we look at fashion, we look at music, looking at everything that is an input that surrounds a consumer that they use to create their opinions.
How can a network use your output in planning?
So we generally work a couple of different ways with networks. One way, the easiest level of entry is through a syndicated study where we will take a genre or a topic and give them the landscape, map the curve, and show them where the opportunities are based on what their particular POV of their brand is. So, for example, if you are a brand that really likes to be part of the mainstream conversation, which we consider a dominant conversation, we can point to specific references either in their content or in the world at large. And we don't only look at television, we look at, depending on the scope of the study, we look at the world at large, and help them understand, because I think a lot of times what I hear from our clients is that they get too insular, they're living in their own bubble, they're talking to themselves. So what we have the ability to do is just frame how they are being seen by outside culture, to allow them to both identify opportunities, to make adjustments to their brand, fine-tune, to help them with their marketing or their programming, to identify specific attributes of their customers that can help them with ad sales. And we also do custom studies, so we can go very deep on a brand and its content and align where things are in sync with culture and where things might be out of sync, which would make them irrelevant. And we also work very closely with programmers and heads of development to fine-tune the cultural relevance of their shows. And we actually are just part of an award-winning team at Comedy Central for the 4th season of Key and Peele, where we made specific recommendations to the programming itself, the production, as well as the marketing before they went into the season, and they've had tremendous success.
What is your company philosophy?
Our company's philosophy is really to be the best in whatever industry we're in, and always to look for the opportunities that perhaps our clients may have missed. And again, because we're looking at culture so thoroughly, we're able to spot things that should be addressed or owned by our client brands, and help them really become more impactful in culture. So to do that, we have a very small team where there's about 10 of us, and we're based in Brooklyn and Soho and LA. We're looking to hopefully expand in the next 3 to 5 years. We'd like to really go into other industries outside of television, but television is our first love and where 99% of our business is. So first off, we're going to really try to serve the television industry as best we can.